United States.
portaltalkradio.homestead.com. Now here's your hosts of Portal Paranormal Talk Radio, Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas.
And welcome to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
How are you, Angela?
I am fine, Tuesday Miles. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. I hear you have a little cold coming on.
I do. I hope I sound clear today.
You sound clear today. You sound just as marvelous as ever.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Very well. Do you feel up to giving all that information that we do each week?
Certainly. We'll make it short and brief. Well, if you are listening to the show, you may also wish to visit our website at portaltalkradio.com to learn more about today's guest, Barb Powell. Now, Barb is a psychic medium as well as an animal psychic. You may also join us in the virtual auditorium on powtalk.com under the social issues category to join other listeners like yourself in the Paranormal Radio Network room. If you have any questions for today's guest, feel free to call toll-free in the United States at 877-786-0562. Portal can be heard on AOL Radio, MSN Radio, BBS Radio, and Live 365, just to name a few. Podcasts and archives are available. Back to you, Tuesday.
Thank you, Angela. Very good, very good. Hello, everybody in the virtual auditorium. We got a big crowd over there. And
oh, yes. Lovely.
Waves to you back. They're all waving to us on it. And so we've got some announcements today, too, and I wanted to give a couple little plugs for... There's a paranormal radio show. It's called Shadows in the Dark. It's hosted by Jeremiah Greer, and they are celebrating an anniversary and having a 48-hour podcast going on. And you can visit their site. And actually, they're having all kinds of prizes if you call in, all kinds of good stuff, too. So wait until we're done and then call them. But you can catch them at Blog Talk Radio, and they're actually, like I said, the name of their show is called Shadows in the Dark. So I thought that was pretty cool. We had a friend of ours, William Bowles, who went and joined them in their investigations that they were doing. And he said he had a really great time. And I think that's fun things to do. I think if you get more involved in this aspect of being a psychic medium is one thing. To be involved with these investigations is another. It's really a lot of fun.
I agree with you. And, Tuesday, a lot of podcasting going on with paranormal investigations all over the country and all over the world, really. And so, you can sit back in the comfort of your own home and watch paranormal investigations as they take place, and also any kind of suggestion towards equipment and what you need to do to document such research.
That's true. And, the more documentation, like I always say, is better. And the fact is, write about your stuff. Write about the fact is that you've witnessed something of the abnormal or the phenomenon against the paranormal. The more that you write about it, the more others can learn from it. And, and hey, I think it's interesting. I think it's one of these things that are out there that is just the most exciting it is. I mean, it's growing and growing and growing. The paranormal field is just, there's already a million people out there already that's practicing it, educating it, talking about it, writing about it, you name it, they're doing it. So.
Well, now you're doing your own research at the moment, aren't you?
I am. I love this part of it. This is the part that it keeps me, educated. It keeps me interested. I've always been one to, try some new experiment with this stuff to see really what the outcome's going to be. But this time, this new documentation I'm doing is with the EMF, the magnetic part of it.
And so you now have new equipment as well as software
I do.
That you are documenting, two or three times a day?
Twice a day.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Angela, it really is a huge breakthrough because, forever on end we have tried to get Edison to back the paranormal investigators out there to get more involved, because the fact is, they have to do with they have departments that have specialists in the magnetic field and the EMF field, which we have, all decided that there is something that goes hand in hand with ghosts and magnetic field or the EMF. And so forever on end, Edison, chose to ignore it. They didn't want any part of it, and I happened to come across a man. I'll just give you his first name. It's Brian. He is the head engineer and head supervisor for the EMF department with Edison, and Spoke with him a couple years ago, and I usually call every year just to have them come out to check the magnetic field around my home. For those of you who are having any type of ghost or paranormal activity around in your home, your place of business, whatever, I suggest that you start documenting it with Edison and let them come out and take some readings and see what they come up with. It's, to me, it's a process of elimination. It's, it's a better way for us to get some answers on really if magnetic field has anything to do with the ghost phenomenon.
So that what Edison is the electric company
It's
in
electric
California?
Company. Yes, it is.
Okay, so whatever the electrical company is for your particular province or state. Now, Tuesday, let me ask you this. You had shared earlier in the week that through this EMF documentation, in other words, you're taking meters and you're getting readings and you're forwarding it directly to Edison itself. But you had shared with me about an abnormal reading that you received with extremely high EMF when there was no real cause for that. And as I understand it, is that not at the portal in your home?
It is, and it's where this one spirit, which I call Elizabeth, is, and the poor thing, if you want to set up camp someplace, a bathroom is just, to me, not the most pleasant place to set up camp. But this spirit has decided that that's where she's going to be. But interesting what I found, though, Angela, is as I'm documenting each room, mind you, I created a chart, and each room has its own number. And not only am I doing the inside of the house, I'm doing on the outside also, and per instructions from Brian. And so, I really wanted this to be a professional way that I was doing this. I'm taking this very seriously. I'm documenting every aspect of it, from the weather to the moon to the equipment that we're using inside of our house, the equipment that's located outside of the house, making sure that there's, everything is going to be covered. And I noticed in the bathroom on one particular wall, now this is one wall that basically only has a light switch on it. It doesn't have anything else on the other side of it except for one other item, which is my tower to my computer. Now, I noticed that normally with the readings in throughout my house, I've been getting a 0.4, 0.2, 0.4, in between that, which means that it really is a very low reading of magnetic field, nothing to be concerned about.
Okay.
But when I reach this one wall, and I do know that there's active ghost phenomenon in this particular bathroom, that I started getting readings up into the 40s. Now, this is 40.9, which means is that it's extremely high.
Well, it actually sounds dangerously high because, EMF also makes one ill.
It can, but see, there's that point there again, Angela, because they really haven't, Edison yet hasn't said, okay, this can actually, by consistent high reading, you being around magnetic field, that it can cause A, B, and C. They have not said that in so many words. Now, there has been other reports from other companies that say, well, it can cause anything from dry skin to hallucinations.
Ooh.
So there's that all ABCs in between hand, that there's all these other conditions that it can cause.
Goodness.
But yet, magnetic field, what I have noticed is that when it does congregate into one certain area, you have to look at the aspects around it. You have to look to start seeing, okay, what indeed is causing this? I myself thought that magnetic field would like hover, like smoke would hover. Nor did it rise, nor did it fall. But I was curious enough to notice that this magnetic field actually can travel up to 2 to 4 feet from the original source that's causing it. So it's not just that it stays right there with it. It does travel. It does kind of float itself over. Now, mind you that I process of elimination of all the other rooms to make sure why is this congregated in one certain room? Is it the fact that this ghost that's in this room is stuck there because of the magnetic field is so high in that area?
Well, that's a very good question. And for those listening to the show, if you're experiencing any spiritual activity in your house and suspect it may be caused from heavier EMS, then, write us an email at info@portaltalkradio.com and let us know your story, and we shall hopefully be able to place a link very soon on the website for you to utilize and gather some more information.
Interesting also, too, when I was speaking with Sid Schultz, who's with Pasadena Paranormal Research Society here in California, he worked on a case that went out, and there was a high amount of magnetic field. The EMF was outrageously high, and the people were actually getting shocked when they were going to, like, use their water. They would get a shock feeling. And the house itself wasn't grounded. And so, you know, the fact is that he actually saved their life for having their house really grounded, because there could have been a fire. Absolutely could have caused a fire from this, you know. And so I think that itself, that really, though, what's most importantly on this is that you really do make sure, a process of elimination, that if there's any other source, that besides the fact you're not on a burial ground, there's not a whole lot of history there with this, that you don't have the residual there. The process of elimination really is important, that when you have investigators come out, and they really now do bring all these tools, that they can actually help get to the cause of what Elvis is. And actually, in some cases, like, for instance, on Sid's team, they helped save the life of these people for not having their house burned down.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I know that you had shared with me at one time that EMF has been suspected for high cancer rates, and you do have that going on in your area. And I know other states, at least around the United States, and I'm sure worldwide, have certain communities that have high cancer rates with no known, particularly known reason for it. So, you know, can you share anything about EMF and cancer?
Well, this is the thing about it. I'm learning more as I go, you know, with this documentation that I'm doing too, Angela. You know, to say that the reasons that there has been 22 deaths on my block alone, this is within 42 homes, since 1972, I've been documenting it. How I noticed it? Well, I step back. I mean, here it is, you know, my neighbors, none of them really noticed it. I mean, you know, the ones who've come down with cancer, the ones who have died from cancer, you know, their families either moved away or, you know, life goes on for them. But they didn't step back to think, how many other people on this block alone has come down with cancer? And I started noticing things. I started noticing and counting, okay, they died, you know, and started going down the list. So I did send out a flyer to my neighbors and said, hey, you need to look at this. It would not hurt you to call the health department. Have the radon underneath your house looked at. Have it tested. Have your soil tested. You know, I had the health department go out they did a square mile around me to test the air quality to see if this was a pocket, if this somehow, at the level that our houses were built, is a pocket for the, you know, the radiation from everything that we use, from the soil, from anything, is causing to have cancer in this area. It's a cancer cluster area. And unfortunately, they didn't find anything now. And this is not to say that there was something back then, but there's still cancer cases coming up in my neighborhood right here. This is not something that happened, you know, I mean, or for these people who lived here back in 1972, but it's still continuing to happen. And so, you know, whether you want to be proactive with this or not, you know, was up to my neighbors, but I felt that it really needs to be looked into.
Well, please keep us posted, because we'll follow you as you do your research for EMF. And hopefully at the end of your investigation, then you'll share the results with everyone.
Well, you know, this is the sad thing I thought about. This is, and you can't really quote me on this. This is just an idea. The fact of it is that when we were reading the measurements in this bathroom, you know, I do know my ghost there. I mean, mind you, I've noticed that she's been there for 7 years. So she lunged at me twice. Well, actually 3 times she lunged at me, and I thought, okay, now settle down. We're not in here to hurt you. You know, she does have a portal that she protects. I call her a gatekeeper. And I thought, you know, I mean, she really did. I thought, okay, now, you know, settle down here, Elizabeth, you know, because I thought, well, she must think that we're trying to, you know, whether to harm her, because she didn't understand this equipment we were using in there, really. And I actually had to go back in there and talk to her about it, you know, I mean, and I have to say, Angela, this is not one of my favorite things when you know, if somebody was in there that did not see this ghost as I do, the fact is they would look at me and say, are you talking to the wall? You know, because, and you think that, okay, can you just kind of float down a little bit in front of me so I don't feel like I'm talking to the wall? You know, I mean, hello, you know, and mind you that she does know me very well, as I know somewhat of her. You know, I'd love to know more about her, but it's sadly to say, my point is with the story, is that if this EMF, if this magnetic field is keeping this ghost stuck, how sad that, you know, that we didn't discover this earlier. That for some reason that I can buy, they do have this cloth that you can put behind your computer. It's almost like a water heater cloth that absorbs the magnetic field. I would have done that ages ago.
Mm.
So I did order some. It is quite expensive, I have to say. It's quite expensive for it. But it's worth the money if I can say, you know what, the magnetic field is going to be absorbed in this. The readings will come down in there, and this will keep her from being unstuck.
Well, I hope that Elizabeth does have peace and she is able to move from where she is. Otherwise, we don't want anything eternal for Elizabeth in that home. But Tuesday, speaking of EMF, which is very natural in the universe, what about the earthquake that happened this last week?
You had the earthquake. It's right. That's right. You experienced it, not me. It wasn't California this time. It was where Angela lives. Angela, you experienced a very big earthquake.
Well, we didn't get the earthquake directly. The epicenter wasn't here in St. Louis, Missouri. It was actually at the Illinois basin where it meets Indiana. So it was a 5.2. However, St. Louis and other cities throughout the region, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, Indiana, just many states experienced tremors. So I have to tell you that one of the first thoughts that I had, besides the earthquake itself, was I am not prepared. And I did not psychically get that we were going to have one, within a two or 3 day time span. I do, though, have a friend of mine that sells this EvacuTape. And as soon as that tremor hit, I thought, it's probably going to be a big one in this region. And where is the emergency tape when I need it?
Right.
So,
right. So you didn't wake up prior to the earthquake. It woke you up as it was going.
It woke me up. Yes, it did. And then we did experience a tremor several hours later. So, a lot of psychics that I am aware of have been emailing me about which regions within the United States that they're predicting. Some of the psychics are saying the southeastern part of the United States will have the next one, while others say, no, it's the northwest. So we shall see if one or both experience that in a small time frame.
Well, you can do your predictions. I did do a prediction earlier in this year when when the year changed from 2000 to 2008 in regarding San Diego and Chula Vista, the beginning of Mexico in that area. And they did have the earthquake. They did have the earthquake. But I have to say to you, Angela, every major earthquake that we've had here, I've always woken up about 10, 15 minutes beforehand. I don't like them myself. I live with them because I'm in California. But, this would be great. The fact is that if there ever could be a psychic out there that really did predict the ones that are in the 6 points, the 7 points, 8 points, well, I have to tell you, it would save a lot of lives.
Mm-hmm. It certainly will. Well, I've made predictions, but I've always made predictions in other areas, other places. And I don't typically stop to think of my own area. So I will have to spend a little bit of time, go in and see what's up for the St. Louis area, or at least the region, like Chicago, Illinois, and places such as that. So I think that it really served a good purpose, though, to let others know in the area that, you need to prepare for any type of emergency. And so I know there's been a lot of earthquake predictions for California, and so I appreciate all of your tips. You, Prism, for the tips, as well as those that have emailed me since last week's quake, or actually 3 days ago there was a quake. So
yeah, so it's not one of the funnest things to but if you do find yourself your doorway, and that's with living in California, it's just like living with them. You really don't pay attention to them on a daily basis, but you're kind of aware. You make yourself aware where you're at, knowing that if the one does occur, you've got some kind of shelter to get yourself underneath. You just don't want to get hit by some concrete flying from the air. You really don't. It's just not pretty.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome very much. And so I had another, too. Let's change the subject here, because I'm going to go on to, how I am, Angela, when it comes to exorcisms.
Yes,
you know
I do.
How I am about that. You know how I am about the fact is about this demon stuff that goes out there. And we have another sad report. Again, here we get another little girl killed from a mother stabbing her because the demons were attacking her. And, you know, it's just such a sad, sad thing that the fact of it is that, you know, are we truly being, you know, what's that word I want to use? If it is the fact is that these churches are convincing their followers that the fact is that these demons exist in all of us, and that the fact is that, you know, I mean, that they need to do an exorcism on them. Here it is again, we lose another little girl because of this.
Well, you know, but Tuesday, we have to stop and think first that, you know, it's unfortunate the little girl died and died at the hands of her own mother. However, we have to question whether or not the mother was mentally ill and the cause of such an attack on the child was due to her mental illness, or if it was actually a cause from a demon and therefore possessed the mother who thought it was the daughter, etc., etc. So there has not been any sort of follow-up to that investigation about the murder to say, you know what, we do have known proof or investigators who say, yes, there definitely was or is a demon in this area. So, you know, many people, and I'm sure you've seen many movies and heard on radio, as our listeners have, that so-and-so attacked another or murdered another because they were hearing voices to tell them to do so. So we have to question, is that mental illness or is that definitely demonic possession going on? And speaking of that, we've got Sunday, May 6th, we have Lorraine Warren.
We do have Lorraine Warren.
Ooh, I love it because Lorraine is a legend in demonology and paranormal investigation.
She is, and her husband was, his title was a demonologist. So, you know, it breaks my little heart that here it is, this 51-pound daughter, Evelyn. Her little name is Evelyn.
I know.
So, you know, I mean, if you have a minute out there, our listeners, say a little prayer for this little Evelyn, and one for the mom, too. You know, I'll have to say one for her, that she, you know, I mean, to live with the rest of the life that you killed your daughter because she thought that she had some kind of demon possession in there.
I know, it is unfortunate.
I mean, it's very sad. It is, you know, and I have to say, Angela, I want to blame these shows for you know, for really concentrating on the fact is that, you know, there's such a thing as this, and
well, you know, there is such a thing as demons and possessions, and you know, exorcisms can be quite constructive as long as it's performed by one that is, number one, in faith of any kind towards a higher spiritual form, God or whatever your belief system supports, and also one that is very experienced. So no one should go out there and try to perform exorcisms based on what they've seen on television. They really need to be with either their clergyman, their priest, or one that's been doing this for years.
Well, you and I have a debate about this stuff on it. You know, it gets me all ruffled about it because I'm thinking, you know, come on, people. You know, I mean, but then again, you say there's demons out there, and
there is demons.
You know, a demon in curlers is just not a fun thing to play with. It just isn't.
Well, you know, demons are able to take on any form, whether that it takes on the form of a child or, you know, some, you know, horrific-looking being or a particular person. It can do, you know, just like angels. Angels can take on form of anything, animal, person, anything. And so can demons. So, you know, I know that your belief system doesn't support demons, but mine does. And, you know, I've done a lot of reading and researching on demons. That's one area that I find particularly interesting, angels and demons. So, and I'm hoping that we'll do an upcoming show.
So, Angela, if you were faced with what you call a demon in front of you, would you run?
No, not, well, I say no. I may, depending on just how, you know, what the circumstances was. But, you know, I have to tell you that many years ago, and I won't go through the whole story because I've never really made it public until now.
Okay.
But when I was 15 years old, I did see a demon, which did not leave, you know, like come and go. and it was a very horrific experience, very fearful.
Okay.
But the one thing I have to tell you is that my faith was very deep-seated, deep-rooted, and it was the power of prayer, because it was hours of prayer. And I say hours, it felt like 2, 3, maybe 4 hours before this thing finally left. And so from that moment on, my interest towards, that of God and that of Satan, my journey began. So.
Now, I want to make because Eula makes a good point in our virtual auditorium, and she says, too many times, any kind of paranormal or what some would call odd behavior is called demon activity. And she says some go so far as to think that if you don't believe as they do, it is because the demon has blinded you. That's a great point, Eula.
Very good comment. Very good comment.
And that's so true, and everybody's saying so true on that aspect of it. Well, enough of the demon on it. Like I said, I'll say a prayer for this little girl who's now what we would call in heaven, and sad to say that she doesn't get to live her whole life out because of this stuff. And
yes,
I wanted to read
unfortunate.
an email, Angela, that I got from, and I hope that she doesn't mind that I use her name at all. And Linda, if you're out there, which I know that you're in our virtual auditorium, I want to make sure that I have her permission to read this, because I think it does need. Linda and Joe Montaldo, who Joe is our station manager, is with ICAR, and so to me, I always say that they're, the experts on ufology, on abductions, contactees, and she wrote me this email she sent out, and I want to read some of it, and it says, "What has become of ufology? Now aliens are up for sale. Dr. Sala offers. Now, it's exopolitics certifies, galactic diplomacy certifies, and now she's got this word, it's going to be hard for me to say, expoliticus, politics, oh God. Okay, no, this is interesting. They're selling actually aliens for $2,625. Of course, you're supposed to pay ahead so you can receive all of this.
What are they selling?
They're selling aliens. When I was contacted
for $6,000.
For $2,625.
Ah, I see.
When I contacted Dr. Sala about this, he told me his courses were no different than what you would receive from any larger university teaching a course in political science. Dr. Stephen Greer offers a number of videos for $20 to $30 or more. Greer also offers a course, Ambassador to the Universe, where only for $995 he can teach you to physically contact aliens. Greer's latest edition is for $99, and he can teach you to bring aliens to your living room through meditation. They're selling them. They're selling courses on how to contact these aliens. Okay. Sadly, on this, it says, for UFO conferences only, they offer a place to meet others like mind, and once in a while you will actually have a chance to hear a contactee speak. However, more of the time is spent selling books, videos, workshops, and contactee-inspired artwork. You will also have the same tired list of famous ufologists to listen to, telling the same tired stories or worse than personal view of what is going on, usually based on the other people's experiences or stories that they have heard from a friend of a friend. Okay. Now, also, too, she goes on, the fact is that on another email that she had sent is the uncompassionate people who are out there. I mean, the fact of it is that a person who really goes into detail about ever being abducted, or the fact is that being a contactee, they're laughed at, and I don't like that. I think particularly the fact of it is that if somebody generally has the story, and you usually can tell whether or not they're being upfront and honest, I say allow them to give their story, allow them to talk about it without being ridiculed, without being judged. The fact of also too is that and I understand with Linda's been involved with this stuff for a very long time, and she has a lot of compassion for aliens. And the fact of it is that I truly believe too at this point that they're not out there to harm us, that they're out there to help us or to educate us or for us to learn from them. And the fact of it is is to stop the fact of trying to hurt them or to make them the bad guy out.
Well, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that. I don't know if my belief system would say I believe that all aliens are good or bad, but certainly, as diverse as humans are here on Earth, with all of their faults and glories, that would aliens not hold the same characteristics? In other words, would there be good and bad among aliens? We're going to have to do a show on this.
Well, I really do, and I'd like to really, have both Linda and Joe on a show, and and to allow them to have voice for this, because I don't understand it all myself either, Angela. I am not, I would say, one that be completely educated on it, but I do know Linda and Joe both, and I find them to be credible people. I find, and I listen to what they have to talk about. I really do. So.
Well, I know that they're experts on ufology, and so definitely we'll have to have them on the show so that we can find out all about it. And I understand there's grays and there's browns and, various type of alien communities and situations. So I can tell you, though, Tuesday, my father, years ago, was in the military and was stationed at Roswell, New Mexico, where the, infamous case of a UFO crash occurred, and it had been reported that there were dead aliens as well as living aliens that were being kept on that base. Well, I have to tell you that my father, when I was young, spoke about such things, and spoke about the whispers about aliens actually being there, the dead ones as well as the one that was alive. So, it's very, very, it's still a mystery.
Well, it is. You're right, it is. And it's, and it's, to me, it's got to be one of the hardest, subjects to prove upon. I mean, because the fact is we don't have it happening every single, or if we do, we don't have, each one of us has not experienced it. And for those who have, their detailed stories are incredible, Angela, and this is the thing. I'm not going to put it out there saying I don't believe these people, because I wasn't there. I didn't experience it. It wasn't something that I can say. So until I can speak, if something happens right in front of me, as far as I'm concerned, their story has truth to it.
Well, certainly. And, we cannot judge others and their experiences, and we can only listen to them. And the thing is that how do you prove such a thing? Truly, how do you prove it?
Well,
just like how do you prove God? How do you prove, psychics? How do you prove all of this?
Well, I think that we've come up with ways. I think that the documentation of ufology has been there with this. They've worked their butts off with all this stuff. Screw the government. Can you hear me, government? Screw you. If you don't want to take any notice to it. They want to take notice,
But I have to, ask you, though, Tuesday, do you believe that the government is keeping a lid on the information about UFOs because they do not want to spark any fear in the population? Or do you think that there is a lot of high-tech things going on that the American government is working, and other governments throughout the world that are working with alien nations, and they do not want to give that information out because it would be, against national security or world security?
Well, what causes fear, though, Angela, is hiding it and keeping the lid on it. That's what causes fear. If they want to have, if they want to educate us, then they need to give us what they have on that and help us through that educating us. This is not a small community. Ufology is not a small community. It's a nationwide community. Just like the paranormal is on it. Do you know that now that you can actually have people write grants and get grants for paranormal studies?
Yes, I heard about that.
Okay, and they're getting them. These teams are getting the grants for their studies. I don't understand why you can't write grants to get studies for the ufology.
Well, I'm sure it would fall under paranormal phenomenon.
Well, whatever it falls underneath, they should support it. They're not asking for the whole government to come into this. They're asking for their own division, their own. Just a person would be great. It's not a small, it's not a tall order. They're just asking for some acknowledgement of it, some participation with it. We're not asking Bush to change his belief system. We're just asking him to allow a little small part of it.
Well, President Bush is not the only president that has been in office that has denied any sort of information. We have to be fair to President Bush by saying he's not the one and only one.
you look. It says in the virtual auditorium, we're not ready to accept that there are others in the universe. But though, Eula, this is the thing. I'm going to have to say the fact is that do we fall into that being that idiot zone, thinking that we are the only type of beings in this humongous universe?
Well, one of our virtual auditorium listeners was saying that Ronald Reagan himself, mentioned, UFOs and aliens.
Huh.
So we'll have to go back and research exactly what Ronald Reagan said. Did he let something slip, or did he feel that the government should open up what they know?
Well, a lot of good he's going to do is now. He's dead.
Well, he's dead, but the information would still be intact.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's very true on it. It just, I think that also, too, is that it's that foreign subject where, if anybody politically that's out there that has a name to themselves stands up and says, yeah, I've seen a UFO. I mean, there goes, their credentials, there goes their sanity. I mean, there goes that we thought that Bill Clinton, we used Bill Clinton. There goes his credibility, on it. It's that fact that they are to step away from who cares what other people think of me, and let's just get the truth out there.
Well, let's just assume for a moment, Tuesday, that the government, worldwide governments, do not wish to share this information with their populations due to a threat against the work that they've been doing. Okay, and based on that assumption, wouldn't it be like a national security department issuing out their secrets, what the FBI is doing and what NSA is doing and what the CIA is working on? Just, you can't deliver that information to the general population because they've asked for it.
Yeah.
We know there's spies out there. We know that governments have to do what they have to do in order to keep peace. And so they cannot just spill that information at the request of, the population, because otherwise, we all might be doomed.
Well, that day, it's funny that you say doomed because that subject of 2012 has been circulating a lot lately again. And people, I hope the fact is that people don't go out there and buy all this canned food. I mean, buy it because you think that the earthquake's coming, or maybe that there, something else in that aspect. But if you think that 2012 is going to bring a doomsday, don't start panic within the, within our universe. I don't think the fact is that maybe this is just my opinion. God knows, don't write hate letters. The fact is, I just don't believe the fact is that our day has come on 2012.
Well, nor do I. I do believe, though, that we're going to go into a new era, that we will see things slightly different. Our consciousness will raise a little bit higher. I believe that there's going to be earth changes that take place, and it will force us to operate or to do things a little bit different than what we're doing today.
And like Snow Wolf said, it will be a shift, not the end. Well, this is the thing. Here it comes, 2012. Why just that year? Because the Mayan calendar says it's going to be that year. I believe now that we are going through a shift. I believe now the fact is that, and bless the religion. I'm not putting down religion at all on this, but there's that shift from being that religious person to that spiritual person, that we are now opening our eyes and saying, hey, you know what? It's okay that they believe in that, because that's what they believe in. It's not going to affect me. It doesn't change who I am. If it makes them a better person, then they can be that way. And to be more open-minded in regarding that we're going to become more spiritual. And I think that we're on that path as it is now.
Well, I know. We're definitely on a path of change. And, the world is actually getting smaller as we speak because of the Internet. And a lot of communications are going on, as well as threats on the Internet. So we're going to have to do something a bit different. And the only way to get a mass population to do things differently is when a large event happens to force them to do so.
Well, and then we see people who are actually out there generally helping other people. So, we're getting away a little bit out of the paranormal forum here, but, this is my message for you out there on it. If we've all seen the world changing. We all know that we have to put our part in it. We're not going to, We cannot just rely on everybody else to mop it up, that we each have to do our part. You see a piece of trash on the floor, pick it up. Don't take your paint and pour it down the drain. We've got other, sources for you to get rid of toxic waste. It's important for you to do it now. Maybe not for us to see the changes of it, but for your children's children's. That great-great-great-grandchild that you're going to have out there. You want them to have a place to play.
Well, that's true. That's true. So we'll just have to bring on an expert. Well, not an expert, because what experts are out there on 2012, but certainly maybe an anthropologist to come on who has studied various cultures, or have worked as an archaeologist to see what's going on, who have studied those cultures like the Mayan culture.
I've had some requests to have a guest on that can specialize in crystals. So that's a good thing on it. We are so booked on our shows until,
yes, we are.
Geez, all until October, I think, October, September.
Yeah, well, actually October.
So. Okay, and so we have Brad Steiger. Gosh, Brad Steiger. If you remember that name and keyword it, because I'll tell you, this guy has written more books than I think they have in the library at the schools.
Well, I have to tell you, Tuesday, you had shared with me some of the books that Brad had written, and some of those I have, right? So a couple of weeks ago, I waltzed into one of my favorite metaphysical shops in St. Charles, Missouri, and I find this fascinating book. It's called Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places. So I'm flipping through there, and I said, oh, perfect. I purchased the book, I bring it home, and, I'm busy with other things, and I sit down finally, pick up my book, and I look down, and it's a Brad Steiger book. So I thought, goodness gracious, I'm collecting this man's work, and I did not even realize it.
And talk about synchronicity, because didn't I just book him on our show?
Just booked him.
I did.
So isn't that wonderful?
And we have Echo Bodine coming in on next week.
Oh, I know.
I love her.
I'm excited about Echo Bodine.
I'm excited about Echo, too. I mean, she, this is what I like about Echo. She keeps it really simple and really real. And she's got this really good, this outrageous, nice, new metaphysical school, which I believe that she's taken it where you can take courses online and be involved in a live chat room with her. So there's all kinds of new up-and-coming things with Echo. And we also have today Barb Powell.
Barb Powell, yes,
Psychic
medium.
We have a psychic medium. And, this is the thing with her. She does communicate with animals. And I have to say, during, when I was reading her bio, a lot of it did discuss about her communication with animals. And I don't think we've had a psychic medium on the show yet that does that.
We have not had an animal psychic at all, so I'm very eager to talk to Barb today on how she actually does communicate with animals. And Tuesday, a long time ago, there was a psychic, a pet psychic, on, I believe, A&E or some channel of that nature, very popular show. And this particular psychic spoke to mules and dogs and cats, and definitely, the client list went on and on and on, but a lot of people are taking their animals to pet psychics simply because there's something psychologically going on, and naturally they cannot communicate.
Oh, absolutely. I had an experience, my first experience with communication with animals. It blew me out of the water, and I was called to go visit this animal. It was a marine mammal rescue unit, and this place, what they do, it's located in Laguna Beach, California, and they rescue wild seals that are hurt or something's wrong with them, and they go out in the ocean and they rescue them, bring them back to the facility, and of course treat them, and then so that they can re-release them back in the ocean. And they were having some ghost activity in the place, and this place is it's gorgeous. It's nestled in the hills of Laguna Beach. It's a beautiful city over there. It's a very rich city actually, and so I went down there, and it's like it looks like an old barn is what it is. And the top half of it is where all the offices and stuff were, and that's where they were having a lot of the ghost activity and stuff. And so I was able to. There was an old woman that was there who actually ran the facility when it first opened, and she had died and decided not to move on. And then there was two men that were there that had died in a car accident out front. And so we were lucky enough to get them to move on. But as I was leaving, I went down where the sills were. There was 3 sills there, 2 baby sills, and there was a male sill. And I had sat down on the floor with them, and I could hear, it's like I could hear them talking to me, Angela. And I looked at the woman who was the organizer of the facility, and I said to her, these 2 sills do not want to go back to where you picked them up. They're being bullied. And she says, well, let me get the log. And so she went and got the log, brought it back, and she looked at me, and I'll never forget the look on her face, because she says to me, oh, my God, that's the reason why we pulled them out, because they were being heavily bullied by a male bull still there. And
so you were communicating
so
with
I was
an animal.
communicating with them. And so, I was shocked myself, thought, okay, so this is how this feels like communicating with an animal. Well, there was a male still that was across from them. And I went over and sat next to him, and I said to her, I says, he's not eating? And she says, no. And I said, his tummy hurts a lot. And she says, of course, she turned white. She says, oh, my gosh, yes, we know that he's got a stomach infection, but he won't eat, and we can't treat him unless he eats. That's the only way we can treat him. And so I just remember sitting there on the floor and talking to him and saying, hey, look, if you want to be stuck here and die, fine. But otherwise, you've got to take the fish they're giving you. It has medication in it, and this way you'll be able to go back into the ocean where you belong. Come on, you've got to help yourself. And I got an email from the lady a couple days later. She says, right after I left, she went in and decided to put some medication into a fish and went over to him, and he took it.
Goodness
and
gracious.
She was happy to report that 3 weeks later they were able to re-release him out back into the ocean. So,
Well, I think that's a fascinating story, Tuesday, but do you think that some people would have thought that you were losing your sanity by speaking to a seal?
At first I thought I was losing my sanity talking to the seal there, Angela. It stunned me because here it was that, I've always had a good rapport with animals. Animals seem to, when they run away, they end up on my doorstep, no matter what it is. And I knew that I had a connection with animals. But, to understand that real communication, that when you're getting with them, whether it's through the telepathy part of this, through the psychic, information that you're getting, you're not sure, you're only assuming that you're communicating with them. When you get that actual validation, then it's like you understand the sensations of the feelings that you're getting throughout your own body.
Absolutely.
And so,
I believe that animals do telepathically communicate with us.
Well, I do too, and I think the fact is that, I was really grateful to the woman who is the founder of this place, or the organizer of it, that she was able to share that with me, so that way I had the validation that what I was picking up was actually the right, true information. But here's the thing, too. I believe that animals communicate with us. I believe the fact is that maybe if you're not looking at them and getting that telepathy from them, that their face features, can communicate with us. What the fact of it is that they truly want to talk with us. They, know that you have this, your own dog. You know that you've had your dog forever. You know them well, and you know by just the way that they're acting that you can communicate with them.
Well, were you aware that there is a Japanese corporation out there that now sells doggy language collars?
Wow.
In other words, you put this on your dog, and through some sort of software that, comes with it or communicates with it, anyway, it translates the dog's barking.
No, get out.
I kid you not. And this has been out for quite a few years. But I believe it's called the Doggy Language Collar or something of this nature. But for those, interested, you may want to jump on the Internet and find out a little bit more, or seek a pet psychic.
Hey, you know what? Maybe Barbara Powell.
There, Barbara.
There you go.
Powell. Mm-hmm.
There you go. And we're getting also those of them at, our virtual auditorium that are jokesters. Of course, Ian, lovely Ian, and he says, just wave the pork chop in front of them and then see what they'll do. You can get some communication from them then.
Well, I think that we have to, we can joke about it all that we want to.
We can.
But honestly, we really have to start looking at what others are experiencing and what their claims are, because this is, a huge universe, a huge place, and a lot of things are going on that have been unexplained, and it would be nice for us to focus on, new things.
absolutely on it. And I think, hey, you know what? This is what it's about. All things are possible, isn't it, Angela?
Yes, anything is possible.
Anything is possible on that aspect of it. So, we'll see today. She's got lots and lots of things to talk about. She's I think, I'm not sure, but I believe she's involved with the Best Psychic also too. That you can register at a site that that you've actually it's a category that you can put yourself under. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask her about that because I know that she had a that on her website that said it was the Best Psychic. Do you have a website there, Angela?
I certainly do. That is going to be www.barb-powell.com.
And you can find it on our website at www.portaltalkradio.com. And you can also go in and listen on Allcast. You didn't have that. You didn't say that earlier.
Well, no, because there are a lot of different podcasts out there that are carrying our show, as well as the shows on the Paranormal Radio Network. And so Allcast is one that, is very easily accessible. And, so it'd be very difficult to say, iPods and this podcast and that podcast company. But, I guess we should put this on the website.
We should, and then on tomorrow, on Monday, I have a new paranormal team that I have joined. And
really?
I have, and it's called LAPS, L-A-P-S. It's Lakewood. I know, I'm going to make sure I have this right, because if they're listening and I screw it up, they're really going to give it to me. Let's see what it stands.
Is that a Los Angeles paranormal group?
Well, they're located in Lakewood, California. The great thing about this is if any of you have ever gone to meetup.com, www.meetup.com, it's really a cool place for you to, anything that you want, any kind of interest group, whatever it is on it, that you can put a title in there, and it searches for this type of group in your area that you can attend their meetings.
Or even start a group.
And so it's actually pretty cool that, for those of you sometimes who don't have many people around you that you don't know, it's a good way to get out and meet some new people. And any type of topic that you want to put in there, generally will find what you need.
So now Monday you're going out on an investigation?
I'm not going to investigation. It's their first meeting.
Oh, I see.
It is their first meeting that they're having. And, I wish them a whole heck of a lot of luck with this because, what started off to having, just a few members or who wanted to join this team has now grown to almost 50 people who have applied for it.
Amazing. Well, you being a paranormal investigator already and in California, you'll be able to recommend places that your group goes to.
Well, I haven't been chosen yet to be on their group. They're going to narrow it down.
Well, can I make a prediction now?
Hey, well, this is the thing. There's no feelings hurt if I'm not chosen to be on their team. I do work with quite a few other teams. But, I think that it's, they're really serious in it. This is the thing. They're really serious about it. And, they're...
As all groups should be.
Right, and they're two women, who start in the group on it, and we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be fun. It's all good. It's all fun.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Well, we will be putting paranormal investigation tips on the website at portaltalkradio.com. If you have any information or stories you wish to share, email info@portaltalkradio.com, and we'll place it on the site.
Great, and the name of the group is called Lakewood Area Paranormal Society. That's LAPS. Not TAPS, but LAPS.
LAPS, very good.
So I want to make sure I give them a hey now.
Well, we'll have to have them on the show. We are having the Freeway Paranormal shows that will start when? After July 31st?
Yes, we are. And actually, I spoke with, if any of you have listened to Parahub, who is another radio station that actually is a paranormal radio station that I listen to anyways. And so I haven't spoken with the host of the show yet. It's all in a glimmer of our eye. But we're looking for some exciting things that we might be doing, some promo shows where we're merging together with some other paranormal radio
Some
shows.
collaboration.
Yes, we are. So we'll give you more update about that as it comes in. And on that note, we should, got a couple minutes here after we can go to break and bring on Barb.
All right, keep listening.
We'll see when you get back. And welcome back to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
And joining us today is Barb Powell. And Angela, could you give her website out, please?
Yes, Barb Powell is www.barb-powell, POWELL.com, barbpowell.com.
Absolutely. Welcome, Barb. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a little bit cold down here where I'm at, but otherwise I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Yeah,
well, welcome to the show,
welcome,
Barb.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
you told us
you.
you had a big storm going on there. Is everything okay now?
Everything's okay now. You bet. You bet. Got a few inches of snow, but otherwise we're okay.
Snow in the end of April. I just don't get it.
Either do we.
My gosh. I mean, here it is that do you ever buy, summer clothes?
On occasion, yes, we do. Not as bad as that. We do have summer, so don't worry.
Oh, that's nice to hear on that, on it. And we have a virtual auditorium, and our virtual auditorium is also located on powtalk.com, and we have about 33 people that are in here now listening to us on it, and they're all excited to hear from you. And so, one thing that I put on our welcome site, on the Portal website, is that you communicate with animals.
I do, yes.
Do you have animals yourself?
I do have a dog. That's just about it.
Well, that's enough. Dogs are good on that aspect of it. When did you first notice that you were actually getting that communication from them?
Well, animals always had come through in the consultations that I do. Someone just came naturally to me. But of course, thinking back when I was younger, and I think a lot of people actually can kind of agree with me with this, is, you just can feel, if you will, through your particular animal, even through their eyes, if you will, that they are trying to communicate with you. Not all the time we can understand what they're trying to say, but we know that their soul is trying to communicate or say something. And for me, it just kind of progressed from that. They started coming through living and past, by the way, in consultations. And that's how I kind of knew. Experiences is everything.
Wow, on it. And so you're what you would call a natural-born psychic? Is that what I want to call it, Angela?
I do. It wasn't something that, I took tons of workshops for. I certainly did my own research, reading books, trying to find myself and where I actually fit in. And I just started to realize that, this is what this is called. Oh, that's what an aura is. That's what I'm seeing, and relate to things in that way. So I educated myself in that way. And again, experience, doing, practicing, it tells you a whole lot of things. Knowledge is power.
Well,
And
Barb, let me ask you a question here. With all of the animals that you have had as clients, okay, would you find that the use for even communicating with the animal has been based on some kind of psychological disorder of the animal, or would you use them for, let's say, to be an eyewitness to a particular event? Why do most people call you to speak with their animals?
A lot of times it does have to do with an animal's having a problem. Sometimes it's a behavioral problem. Sometimes it's a health problem. And sometimes the client really doesn't know what's wrong with the animal. I believe there's been only on one particular occasion that I can think of anyway that I try to communicate with an animal to try and figure out what has happened to a certain victim, because I do work on cold cases, I do work on criminal cases, and there's only one particular incident that I had helped with that by using animal communication. But a lot of times clients tend to communicate with me just because there's an issue, there's a problem, whether it's health or whether it is, a physical or mental type of situation, if you will, in regards to the animal that they can't figure out.
So you were actually on a criminal investigation as a psychic, and then you were communicating with an animal that was an eyewitness or that was had a behavior problem after a particular criminal event?
Eyewitness. Eyewitness,
isn't
believe
that
that or
something?
not. One occasion, just one occasion, but it was interesting.
So how, Barb, did the police involved in that investigation take the information in which you received from the animal? Did they kind of give you a second look? Or did they accept that information as, gracious? Let's just put it that way. Did they accept it without prejudice?
Well, I actually believe that they had accepted it without prejudice. Again, I was only in contact with one particular detective, and you know what? He basically said that he takes the information as just another tool to help him with his job, if you will. It's not that psychics, if you will, mediums that solve the cases. They certainly help, I hope, in regards to solving a case. But again, he just basically told me this is just another tool on my belt that I'm using in order to move towards a solution and an answer to things. So, it was very gracious about it.
Interesting. Very
cool.
interesting.
Very cool, because you find these days that with working with the police department, that we can give them all types of information, but are they going to take it seriously?
Right.
And that's
You
a good
bet.
thing. If you're able to
you
find
see,
somebody
the
that's
thing,
doing that, well done.
Oh, you bet. But the thing is, though, I'm not a type of person that, if I'm watching the news channel or I'm reading the newspapers, for me, I don't, go straight to the police and call them up. For me, I allow people to come to me, and it's the same thing with my clients as well. If you find me, you find me. If you don't, I'm not going to be searching, basically. So I allow them to come to me. They're the ones that contacted me. So perhaps there's a difference in regards to that. I'd like to think so.
Well, Barb, have you ever communicated with an animal in spirit?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, you bet. You bet I have.
Aww.
And what is that like?
I don't know. For me, there's just real no difference. Again, clients contact me because, they're wanting to communicate with a certain animal. Sometimes, again, I could be sitting down with a client and going through their areas of life, if you will, and all of a sudden this animal comes through for them. Because I don't necessarily like to know beforehand what a client is wanting from me or what they're wanting to know about. I just sit down and just kind of do my thing. So yeah, animals come through. Spirit is spirit, whether they're living or whether they're passed on. Communication is somewhat the same way. It's all about energy. It's all about thought patterns and things like that, and interpretation. For me, I've seen some amazing things, and especially when animals come through, especially when a client has had to even put their own animal down, the guilt that they carry, and knowing that they actually did the correct thing. So there's a lot of healing that could be had in that as well.
That's a good point that you just said about whether they did the right thing or not by putting the animal down.
Right.
A little guilt that people have from doing that, absolutely. I have a couple friends. In fact, I have a relative that had to just put her dog down, and very, very traumatizing for her for that.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, there's so many people that, are very close to their animals, and of course losing an animal is just like losing a human loved one. So I can understand why clients, Barb, would come to you and say, I need to speak to, that beloved pet.
Right. You bet.
Aww.
You bet.
So, Barb, now, I visited your website quite a few times, and one of the things that struck my interest was a line that you had mentioned about you being a psychic medium from birth, but you had mentioned an incident at age 5. Would you share that with our listeners?
Okay. There's a few incidents, really. I'm trying to think which one it is.
Choose your one you want.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think one of the ones that mostly stands out for me, obviously, is when my grandfather had shown himself to me after he's passed on. I can remember it just like it was yesterday, if you will, because for me, in my life, being at that age, it's the first time something that traumatic as a loved one passing has happened to me. And I guess I'm fortunate in regards to that, but it was the first time I had that devastation in my life of someone passing away, And at such a young age, I didn't understand, why people were so sad, why they were so upset, and why they were crying. And my pain was just because of that, of having to watch my family go through that pain. And I remember one night he had come to me, plain as day, and talking to me. And I can remember, I do have an older brother, and I can remember him speaking to me, but it sounded like in a far, far tunnel. I knew someone was talking to me, but again, I was still in that place with my grandfather and being able to see him and being able to communicate to him. And my family was actually quite frightened of that. And I can remember years later them still talking about it and telling me about it. I knew exactly what had happened. And obviously being an adult, and I'm thinking back on that time, I knew my grandfather had come to me, and I told them so, that that's what happened. But again, being at that, time, I guess, in that age, not that I'm that old, but still, when I was that young, if you will, there wasn't a heckload of a lot of television shows about the paranormal or about, crossing overs and things like that to help educate people. So it was kind of shoved under the carpet, if you will. Okay, that's one of the most, incidents that necessarily stood out in my particular mind, but I have tons, really, that I can think of.
Well, did you think at all as a child that you had imaginary friends versus those in spirit?
Oh, no. I knew they were real. For me, they were very real. To others, of course, yeah, perhaps they may have been imaginary friends. But then again, when you're relaying information that, how do you put it, I really wouldn't know about, even at that age. There's no real denying it for me. And of course, people, though, they like to have explanation of things. They like to be, or have reasons for things, if you will, to make it rational. So of course, people certainly probably thought that I was a little bit strange, or that I had imaginary friends. But I wasn't the type of person that walked around and started talking out loud to people. I would just go up to people, if you will, because it was natural for me, and just say certain things. And one of them happened to be, unfortunately, to the wife of a pastor that we went to see.
No kidding.
So,
wow.
You live and learn.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Angela?
Well, did you find that, Barb, the reason I'm asking you a little bit more about your childhood as a psychic is because I believe that there's a lot of children out there that are experiencing psychic or medium experiences, and they don't tend to get the support from their families. A lot of them do say, oh, it's just her imagination, or it's an imaginary friend, they'll grow out of this phase. But did you find yourself as a child with these abilities being supported by your family?
No, I found them being ignored, basically. It's that same old adage of we're just not going to talk about it. It's there, but we're just not going to talk about it. And maybe it'll go away, and maybe things will change. I don't want to say that my family was not supportive, because I didn't really feel that from them, but I don't believe that they were completely supportive, or I guess encouraged it, I suppose. It was just there, So they weren't necessarily telling me not to talk to people or not to say this or do that. It was just basically ignored. Yeah.
I want to talk about, and on your bio that you had sent me, and one part it says, I believe that within every one of us is the ability to create and achieve everything that we desire. And there are angels and spirit guides, loved ones that we have crossed all over around us on it. How would you teach somebody to connect with their angels? Is there certain ways, or that you teach?
Well, there's many ways, basically. Meditation is a great form of that. For me, I think people really forget, if you will, how individually powerful that they actually are, okay? Because we can't change anybody except ourselves, okay? But we can utilize the power, if you will, of our spirit guides and our angels to necessarily guide us in a certain direction. And I think with anybody, they really know what their issues are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Unfortunately, they tend to know their weaknesses more than their strengths, but they really know what to change. The problem is that they tend to make a lot of excuses, and they get themselves so confused, and they analyze things to death. It's a matter of meditation, manifestation, and sitting down, if you will, of trying to connect to your own particular soul as well. and to communicate and become connected with your own particular angel or your own spirit guide, if you will, because they don't mind being tested. They don't mind being asked things. Unfortunately, though, it really needs to be specific. It's not something that you're sitting down in a prayer form, if you will, saying, what is it am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? It's mainly something as specific as, okay, if I should work as an office clerk or an x-ray tech, which one am I supposed to go towards? And you'll get that answer, whether it's a subtle answer, whether it's something that you turn on the TV and you keep finding all the time, no matter where you turn, you know, x-ray tech is always there. People are talking about it. That's a sure sign that you're supposed to head in a certain direction. But unfortunately, we just tend to ignore some of the signs that are being handed to us.
Or trusting that information, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that setup where all of a sudden you go to trust it and then it doesn't work out.
Exactly.
Is that, you know, I mean, and then what you didn't, you know, then the fact is that you lose that trust again, saying, well, you know, I mean, I thought I was listening to somebody give me something that was supposed to be information good for me, and it didn't pan out. So is there no rights and wrongs with the lessons that we get? Is that true?
I actually believe it's true. I really do. I think it's all a matter of how we're looking at it as well. I mean, I've had a client who has, how do I even explain it? They had lost their job. They were fired from their job. And, of course, that's a devastating thing for anybody, if you will. But there was always that little itching in the back of this person's mind of, you know, I always wanted to do this. But, you know, I was stuck in that job. I've been there forever, and I had securities, even though I really didn't like it, you know, and I knew that my time was coming. I just, you know, I just didn't understand it. And unfortunately, it came to that point where they were let go. And, of course, it was very devastating for them, and they took it, obviously, as a negative type effect, like, oh, my gosh, how dare they, and oh, Lord. I mean, they could have been stuck in that position of the self-pity thing. But then again, they just kind of picked themselves up and thought, well, you know what, I'm going to go in this direction. Always wanted to write. And that's what they did, and they actually published a book, and that's what they're actually doing now, is writing. They also have an article in a magazine that they're doing as well, and that's their job, and they couldn't be happier. So, of course, at the time, it was very devastating, and, geez, I should have listened to my intuition, or I should have listened to what I knew my guide was telling me, but I just, I held on to it, or what have you. Spirit has a strange way of showing us and pushing us towards something. Sometimes it could be very drastic, as losing my job.
Right.
But again, she's at a point in her life that she's where she's always wanted to be.
So would part of that be understanding your feelings before trusting your intuition?
Well, in some ways, sure. Sure.
Yeah.
But again, we can't always be 100% correct in regards to our feelings or what have you. And again, like you said, I mean, we thought we were making the right choice. It felt good. But then it didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to
Certainly,
be. It
certainly.
could easily turn out the way it's supposed to be. So there's different ways of looking at it as well.
Well, so Barb, do you teach others online, or are you geographically, specific to your area?
Well, you know what? We have started up a web class. That is coming soon. So I am going to be doing some web classes as well. But a lot of times it is in my geographical area. I am heading into the States this year. I'm just heading to Florida right now, but I'm hoping to be in other places. I've been requested in other places. So, it's just, it's biding my time, basically, figuring out what I'm actually going to be doing with the rest of my particular career and what I'm doing, because I'm very satisfied with connecting with my clients and doing a few things like that, because, my gosh, who else can have a job that they talk to people all over the world? I mean, it's a great thing, and it's a great feeling. So I'm hoping to travel a little bit more, but I think one of the...
you're helping them as you also speak with them.
You bet.
Yeah,
you
absolutely, on that. And so there's a question in the virtual auditorium, and this is from her name's Sassy, and she says, I've heard some psychics tell people they have a gift, or meet a child and say the child has a gift. Is this something Barb can tell from meeting another person?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more
can.
time? Sorry.
What she's asking is that she says that I have heard some psychics tell people they have a gift, or meet a child and say that child has a gift. Is this something that you can tell from seeing the person or meeting the person if they have, if they're also gifted in being psychically?
Mm-hmm. Usually I can. You bet. And again, when you have those specific skills or specific abilities, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what you should do for a living. Because I do believe that everybody is psychic in their own right. And again, not everybody is actually wanting to do this for a living. Because, I mean, anything that you do, there's consequences, of course. There's the good and the bad in any job. But, yeah, you bet. You bet. Normally, I mean, you can tell whether somebody has a gift or whether they don't, you know. I guess what degree or what level that they have.
Well, Barb, did you know that you were going to do this for a living? Did you think of another career field, or did something happen to drive you into this area of work?
Oh, yes. You know, because I didn't always do this full time, of course. I always knew that I had a specific gift. Didn't know exactly what it was called. Because, I mean, I grew up in a very small town. I think it was when I probably hit my mid-20s that I knew what I was doing wasn't it. And I kept running away from what I knew I was supposed to be doing. And I do believe that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But again, there's consequences with everything. And I certainly had them. There were some hurdles that I necessarily had to overcome as well. Because obviously choosing a career as a psychic medium has its drawbacks.
Well, I certainly agree with you. I too have gone back and forth with it as a younger woman, and finally made up my mind and went forward with my passion. What would you, Barb, recommend to those that are considering entering the psychic field?
Being prepared, you know, and not take the things personally, if you will, because again, you have a lot of people that when you're telling them certain things, that there's sometimes they're only wanting to hear what they're wanting to hear, not necessarily what is actually the truth, basically.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's one of the things that was very difficult to get over as well. That if you're not saying the things that a person is wanting to hear, like, oh, sure, your relationship is going to be fine in the future, even though you bloody know it's not. And it's a matter of giving this person those tools and that guidance of knowing, you know what, I'm just going to say what I know I have to say. And, of course, there's a certain way of saying things. But I know when that person hits that point that they're going to understand, then they can utilize the information and the guidance and the direction that I'm going to give them. They may not like it at the moment, but then again, you can't take things personally. And
well,
not everybody's
so
going to, you bet. But then again, you know, not everybody's going to agree with your career choice either.
That's true, on it. So as I'm talking to you now, and I'm saying to you that I have an animal around me that I would like for you to try to pick up on, would you need to speak with the person like you are with me? You can do this through email also?
You know, I do this through email as well. Normally, I like to get a picture sent to me.
Okay.
But it's not that I always have to have a picture sent to me. I can certainly, on occasion, do it without. But then again, I have people email or through email readings as well. With people send a picture or what have you, and that's basically, you know, usually what I need, and pick up on it right away.
And also with the person who's, like, for instance, not communicating with the animal but themselves, also too. Is it that you need to hear voice? Do you need to have a picture of them?
No, nothing at all.
Nothing at all in that?
Nothing at all.
Okay.
I just have to be in that particular zone, if you will, and, you know, I do sessions by email, I do them by telephone, I do them in person as well.
All the above.
Yeah, yes,
all
exactly.
the above on it. Would you be willing to do a? I don't want to put you on the spot now. This is all about you. Don't have to be put on the spot on this. On it. Would you like to do a small reading for somebody that's in our virtual auditorium?
Oh goodness, I can certainly try. I can certainly try.
If they have not putting you on the spot, and again to remind our listeners, you know, this is what we would call like a cold reading, isn't it, though, Barbara?
You bet.
It's a cold reading. Okay, now mind you, now this is the thing about cold readings, and I have to say this too: they're not the easiest thing to do, because the fact is that we are putting her on the spot, and I don't mean to, to do that on it. And we'll give you a couple minutes on it before that. And we'll you know, if somebody in here. Our virtual auditorium would like to have some information from Barb. Then,
I'm sure they will.
And, you know, we'll try on that. We'll give you a few minutes on that aspect of it, too. And so, do you have spirits that come and, or spirits, ghosts, whatever, that come and to your home?
You know, on occasion. On occasion, I do. It's not all the time, of course, otherwise it just drives me crazy. But again, it's a matter of what I actually pay attention to and what I ignore as well. There's been on occasions where I knew that spirits, that energy was basically around me, although I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they were attached to. I could differentiate between whether they were female or whether they were male. And then a couple of days later, I had that client come to me. They were already booked, of course, because I tend to book out about a month in advance. So they were already booked. Just the spirit tended to show up a little bit too soon and continued to stay around until that person came. It's certain things like that as well. And I certainly have family come in as well. But yeah, you bet. They're
so
around.
They're not standing at the edge of your bed at nighttime and shaking your bed saying, hello, wake up, we want you. We need for you to pay attention to us, huh?
That actually used to happen quite a bit. Doesn't happen anymore since I have two small children. Now they're shaking my bed. But no, on occasion that sometimes has happened. Yeah.
And is there anything that you've done to have them not do that to you? I mean, because I seem to have that problem. They come to me all the time.
Oh, I just ignore.
Okay, there you go. There's that word.
Well, Bob, now I understand you are a paranormal investigator as well.
Right, yeah.
Love that.
Well, how long have you been investigating paranormal phenomenon?
Oh, goodness. Probably about 2 years. I had taken this on, probably about 2 years ago. I mean, we've had some very interesting cases. You name it, we've probably have done it. Probably about 2 years I've been working with an organization.
So do you go in as an investigator and disregard your psychic abilities, or do you go in clearly as a psychic for another group or a psychic for your own investigation?
It all depends. If I'm being called from the groups that I'm with or the organizations that I'm with, I'm going in as a psychic medium and giving them that information that I have. There's on occasions where I'm called from my own business, from my own clients or what have you, of going into their homes or their areas of business or offices or what have you, to do an investigation in that way. So I'm having to be a little bit biased as well and ignore some of my particular abilities to be very clear on what it is that's necessarily happened. But again, you take all your skills, you take all your abilities. And
certainly. Has there ever, Barb, been a time when you have been on an investigation and thought, oops, this is now happening and I don't want to do this any longer? Something that would have been too fantastic for you to either believe or maybe too fearful?
Well, there is fear with it. I don't know anybody who would say that it's not that it's not scary when you're having something manifest in front of you, or the feelings and some of the things that you're necessarily seeing. So sure, there is fear with that. I think one of the particular cases was at an older home. When I was seeing some incredible scenes that played out in front of me, and the whole atmosphere was very negative. Now, we stayed all night at this place. We went into what we call crucifixion time as well, when all heck broke loose during that particular time, including the fan falling from the ceiling and you name it.
Oh, my goodness.
We got some very good, that was a very good case. But yeah, sure, there's fear amongst with it as well, but nothing that I would have to say, I'm not doing this again, because then, I'm sure there's going to be other people that actually would do it, but, you have a broader picture of everything, of course, of knowing that your power, your good, your faith, or what have you, is a lot bigger than what's actually manifesting.
Well, I've heard a lot of psychic and paranormal investigators, Barb, that say that once they left that place that they were investigating, that spirit followed them home. Has that ever happened to you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not
how
for
does
me.
she
At
avoid
least, knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
hasn't happened
on it because I don't get that all the time. I'm out of investigations, but I have had them follow me home. That's a whole crew of them. But it just seems to me that the fact is that they don't usually stay. They just pop in and say, hey, excuse me, I need directions back to where I came from. But they do pop around here and there on it.
Ay.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is the thing. And when I talk with others, like me, because you do consider yourself a psychic medium. It's not just a psychic. You're a psychic medium. Is that correct, Barb?
You bet. You bet.
Way to go. Thumbs up on that one, on it. Absolutely. Good crowd on that one. Angela, you consider yourself a psychic medium, don't you?
Yes, I do. But, these days I offer mainly psychic sessions and not mediumship sessions, although it has crossed over. I'm giving a psychic session, and all of a sudden I get communications from Spirit that won't leave me alone, so I go ahead and deliver the messages.
Good.
Absolutely on that one. And so, also too, with your investigations, have you worked with or are you knowledgeable, or what do you feel about the magnetic field that's around spirits?
No, I'm not actually 100% familiar with it all.
Okay.
So I probably wouldn't be able to comment on it.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. They're going to leave that one up to me, I guess, on it, because I'm doing new documentation regarding that. I'm trying to get a hold of somebody that's in our virtual auditorium, and her name is Cheryl, and she's not answering back, so we'll put your on that hold on it. But I want to ask you too on it. For many years, I would hear in my kitchen the sound of nails, like dog nails, tapping, running across the floor.
Oh wow!
And I didn't recognize it for a long time. I mean, we would hear it, but I didn't understand then what that was. It seemed that as soon as I found an object of this animals and put it to where they were buried at, it stopped.
Oh wow!
But now that, for some reason, I have a cat that's living, won't approach its food bowl. And it seems that, and for some reason, I'm not seeing what's in front of it there, though, on it, but I'm keep hearing the sound of a cry from this animal, but yet I can't seem to communicate with it. Is it because I'm in my own home?
I wouldn't say so. So it's the cat you're trying to communicate with?
Well, my cat, it seems that I can communicate okay with him, but this cat that's crossed over in spirit, I haven't been able to communicate with it. And I thought, well, maybe I'm being blocked, or for some reason it's because it's in my own home.
Well, not necessarily, because we can become blocked by spirits as well. I mean, if they're not wanting to communicate with you, they're not going to, And I mean, that certainly has happened to me before. I'm very well aware that it's there. I can feel the energy. You can even differentiate whether it's male energy, whether it's female energy, whether it's animal or what have you. You can pick up certain feelings in regards to it, but then again, it's just nothing. You're not getting any information. You can't go beyond that. And again, sometimes it's more or less, it's almost the same of communicating sometimes with a small child spirit as well, to gain that trust sometimes. And then again, I mean, sometimes spirit tends to be very smart in the fact of, okay, well, I don't want to be crossed over, or I don't want something fixed. I'm just going to be here and not necessarily communicate. So it can be a heckload of a lot of things. I don't necessarily believe that you're blocking yourself per se. I still think that you're going to come to the bottom of it in due time. I just feel that this, whatever this particular animal spirit is that they're just not allowing themselves to communicate fully with you. It's almost like they're in control, and I hate to say it, but you're not at the time. Unfortunately, though, for your cat, it's getting the brunt of everything. But again, I mean, you can certainly try your home clearance or what have you, and try to bridge that gap, if you will. Although I hate to say it, I don't believe that it's going to necessarily work, but you can certainly try it. But I do believe you're going to come to the solution with that.
Okay, that's great information. Actually, you're very accurate on that, because I do feel the fact is like you said, I am going to actually find a way that I can better communicate with them at my house. If there is that problem where I feel like I'm having a block on the communication, how I figure that how can I help these ghosts, spirits, whatever that have visited me if I can't hear them, if I can't communicate with them? It's pointless.
It is. But again, it's like communicating with a small child spirit of one that may be a little bit frightened, and one that perhaps doesn't know exactly what's going on. So then they tend to block, if you will, and not want to communicate because they don't understand what's going on. So it's a matter of gaining that trust, if you will, or that particular friendship to allow that communication to take place. And sometimes I feel that with spirit, or with especially animal spirit as well, of gaining that particular trust as well, because depending on what background that particular animal has, trust may be a huge issue as well.
And same with the children, or even the adults in spirit.
Exactly.
Well, Barb, do you feel that most animals are sensitive to seeing spirits?
Oh, yes. Oh, you bet. You bet I do.
Is there any particular animals that you would find would be more sensitive than others?
You know what? I have to say, really no, but I think especially with dogs, or especially with cats, but dogs more so in particular, if you will, because they seem to be more interconnected, if you will, especially interconnected with humans, so we just recognize it a lot more. But I believe any animal really is connected to spirit, or close to spirit, if you will, because there's such a pure spirit or pure soul themselves, that there's not anybody around, or they're not sitting in front of the television, if you will, and hearing stuff like, oh, this isn't so, or this can't be, and there's no scientific proof, and blah, 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 blah. So they start preparing their own doubts and judgments in their own mind. They're just going about their business, like we all should. But they don't necessarily have that little sound in the back of their head that's telling them and trying to be rational with what they're seeing and what they're feeling. They're very, very close to spirit.
Well, you know, my brother had a dog that had a massive heart attack after racing out of their bedroom. And my brother has a spirit in his house that it's been with him for many, many years. The dog used to bark and yelp and run out of that room, and this particular day it did the same thing, and then just, you know, keeled over and died. And so, you know, to this day they're wondering whether their new pet is aware of spirit or not.
You know, I still say that I have to believe that it probably is. But then again, it's the same thing with people as well. Some people, I mean, will be extremely fearful of you know, spirit or seeing things or what have you, especially the feelings that they're getting from them. And of course, it's the same thing with humans as well. We all have certain personalities. What may scare me may not scare somebody else, and vice versa. And I think it's the same thing with animals as well. I believe probably that the animal that they have now can easily handle it, and chooses probably to ignore. I don't believe that their particular spirit has, like, left, if you will. But unfortunately, I think they found it rather, not to be mean, but I don't think I want to use the word humorous, if you will, but sometimes spirit likes to play certain tricks, if you will, and it certainly likes to get a reaction.
No kidding,
and unfortunately, they really gotten a reaction out of the poor dog. But still.
Do you feel that your children will have this gift too, Barb?
Yeah, I really believe so, especially my oldest. You know, unfortunately for her, I suppose. I have brought her into a home before that she just knew that there was fires in that home. She knew that there had been 3. I don't really know how or why or what have you. She just knew. She just picked up on it, and it actually turned out to be true. I didn't even pick up on it. She did.
Wow.
You know, so, and it's just things like that, things that she's told me as well, waking up in the middle of the night and saying that she's seen a family dancing around a Christmas tree and asking me who they were. I don't know. You know, it's just certain things like that. I mean, for her, I'm allowing her just to grow up as a child, and whatever she turns out to be is completely up to her as well. And, you know, I'm trying to give her as much support and understanding as well. That's all I can really do.
And show her there's no fear from it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wow, yeah, I believe kids need to be kids first and foremost. I mean, on it.
Yeah.
It's already hard enough to be a psychic medium and a kid at the same time.
Yes.
But, you know, and so was there a family member before you, a mother, father, aunt, uncle, grandmother, that you were aware of that had gifts?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure if I went back far enough, I suppose there would be. But not in my complete immediate family that I would know that anybody does this.
Mine either. I can't find anybody in my family that had it either.
Yeah.
So what would you say is a stable age to introduce a child into psychic development?
Well, you know, I think that all depends, too. I mean, you have to look at the maturity of someone as well, because, I mean, goodness, I know 20-year-olds that that aren't really that mature. But then again, you can come across, a 6 or even a 7-year-old that seems to be just such an old soul. Of course, still has those childlike qualities, if you will. But I think we just kind of take it into the fact of what they're necessarily going through and what they're necessarily experiencing. I was called into a home to speak with a child, actually, who was 4, and he was very frightened of his room because he was seeing these, what he called lights, and he was afraid they were coming to get him. He kept saying that I'm afraid to go to sleep because they're going to carry me off again. He knew exactly where in the room they were coming from, knew the colors, but he was frightened of it. So, of course, you're having to explain certain things so he's going to understand that he's still in power, that he's still in control, and explain certain things for him. So that, of course, isn't something that you necessarily can ignore. But I think every child is particularly different. For me, though, I certainly don't read for children or do consultations for children. I normally wait till they're at least 18 or older, unless I get, obviously, parental supervision in regard to that, or a signature, of course. But again, I think it all depends on maturity-wise and everything else like that as well, of what they can understand and what they can't.
Certainly. Well, Barb, recently we have learned that there is a television show that is utilizing children on paranormal investigations, and so they go and tour town to town to town. And some of these children are as young as age 10. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about allowing children on a true paranormal investigation?
I'd be kind of wary about that. Because again, like you said, entities can attach themselves to anybody. And again, I know some psychics and some mediums who won't even go into a supposed haunted place because they don't feel that they're strong enough or that they're going to be able to protect themselves enough for that. So for someone of that age, if you will, to go into a situation like that, you got to be kind of wary about that, if you will, because of what could attach themselves to the child, or their own fears as well, because it can be a little bit scary, if you will, and you have to be sure that they're going to be able to handle it as well, some of the things that they're going to experience or feel, and things like that. So I'm sure perhaps the show screens for things like that, and if they can certainly handle it, but kind of makes me a little bit wary. But, when we come into TV and that particular business, well, I could say a lot, but I won't.
Come on, say it as it is. Say it as it is. Just messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, messed up. It is.
So, Barb, for those who want to reach you for a private session or on your development classes or understanding psychic abilities, how can they reach you?
Well, I do have a telephone number, but and they can get that off the website as well. But I think the most easiest probably way is to go to the website, contact by email, or using the contact form on my website, because I get time and time again that people are saying no one answers.
And that website is barb-powell.com. So, Barb, are you going to be in any particular city that our listeners can come and see you in person?
Well, like I said, I'm going to Florida, but it's not until this August.
Well, we're in Florida. Where can they find you?
Well, hey, there you go. But, everything is going to be advertised on my website on the front page, or people can sign up for the newsletters. They'll always know where I'm going to be at.
Oh, you have a newsletter out, too. That's right. Absolutely. So go to your site, and they can actually join your newsletter, and that way they can get the information ahead of time.
Oh, you bet.
Oh, excellent. Well, we were going to have somebody, ask a question, and I was picking them personally, and they haven't answered me back. Maybe they stepped out of the room for a minute. So we'll just dismiss it as that. And the fact of it is that I myself didn't feel comfortable with making you put you on the spot for this, anyways. Because I know how it is. It's not always comfortable to sit there and do a cold reading right off if you don't have anything else before then.
Oh, no worries for me. Look, I've been there, done that before, so there's no worries for me. But no worries
on it. And so, Angela, do you have anything that we need? We're actually going to wrap this up. We've got about a minute left here on it. Anything else you'd like to add for this? Thank you so much, Barb, for being on the show. Very interesting.
Yes, we have enjoyed it, Barb. We've learned quite a bit about you today. I hope that you will come back and talk to us again.
Oh, hey, you bet. Just hook me up. You know where to find me.
We know where to find you, don't we, Angela?
Absolutely.
And everybody else does, too, right now. They should, contact Barb. Make her really, really busy.
Well, psychic medium and pet psychic Barb Powell can be reached at barb-powell.com. It's been delightful, Barb.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed this so much.
So did I. Everybody else, thank you so much. We've got about less than a minute left on it. And again, that's to reach Barb. You can reach her on her website at www.barb-powell.com on it. And she's got a great site. I like her site, don't you, Angela?
I certainly do. A lot of information there
on it. And stay tuned for next week. We will have Echo Bodine on the show. And everybody have a great week. Take care of each other and your families. And God bless. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Talk to you later, Angela.
Okay, bye.